have a seat here as I welcome up Matthew and Scott as well, who are going to join me. I'll tell you exactly who's coming up as we stick with this theme of talent. Coming up to the stage, Scott Mullins, CEO of Pimlico Plumbers and the head of global happiness at the Happiness Index. Matthew Phelan, give him a warm round of applause, please. Thank you. Yeah, no, come to the end. Come down here, Matt. There we go. You might have heard us, actually. Ali was saying her favourite interview question. Have you got a favourite interview question, Scott?
Favourite interview question? Mine would be when people come in for an interview. I mean, we've got a recruitment team in-house. Yeah. Anyway, so everything's done. But mine would be, what do you know about the brand? What do you know about us? That's for me. You know, if you can rule that off to me, then, you know.
Have they done their homework?
Exactly that.
Exactly that. Got to know. Matthew, what's your?
I'm going to steal mine from someone that I interviewed recently called Oren Bowman, who's the head of marketing for Chelsea Football Club, but don't judge him on that. He said that his favourite thing to ask at the end is, "Can I just come and sit here for a couple of days and experience the culture?" And I'd never considered that myself, and I thought, that's amazing, isn't it? Because everyone's sort of selling to you as well these days, aren't they, about the job? But the best way to do is just come and work and experience the culture. So I think that's a good test, because if someone's a bit worried, they're going to say no, aren't they? I would say, but if they say,
Ali, would that be acceptable?
I mean, it's quite a big commitment if you're interviewing 10 people and they all say that, but I'm sure they probably wouldn't.
Yeah.
No, it's a good test as well about whether you'd say yes to that.
Yeah.
So let's just remind ourselves, Pimlico, but by the way, let me just put on the record, I helped start what's now a thriving social enterprise called VIY, Volunteer It Yourself. Young people fix their own youth clubs. First ever backer, Pimlico Plumbers. Took a bet on us. It's such a cool company. So thank you, Scott. I hope you don't mind me saying that in front of our audience today. Just to remind us, we've all heard of the brand, but just to remind us of the shape of the business these days.
Okay, yeah. Well, you know, my father started the business off in 1979, and he was obviously a plumber, and a very good plumber, and he was working for an estate agent, and he was never really the type of guy who was going to be ordered about too much. You know, he just wasn't that way inclined. So he worked in his estate agents, and he started to sort of see a market out in Pimlico where he used to see, you know, a few bits and pieces, and people started asking for him, you know, "Oh, can you come and do this for me? Can you come and do that for me?" And all of a sudden he started doing these bits and pieces while he was working in the estate agents. So he see a market out there, and he decided, you know, people started to call him Mr. Pimlico. You know, so he decided to get back. And I remember him saying to me, I was only a young boy then, but I was involved with the business from 7. And I remember him saying to me, you know, there's a market out there, I'm going to do what everybody else doesn't do in the trade. And I said, well, what's that then, Dad? And he said, well, I'm going to be smart and tidy with clean uniform. My van will be clean. Yeah. I'll turn up when I say I'm going to turn up. If the job ain't right, I'll put it right. I'll be very transparent. And I'll change the image of the trade. You know, the other thing is you probably wouldn't sit under the sink with his arse showing, like a lot of these plumbers do at the time, don't they? So he decided also to change that. So he really wanted to change the image, and it wasn't rocket science. It was just something he felt that he could do.
And to say it's been successful would be a bit of an understatement. Just give us a sense of the business today. Any numbers you're allowed to share? How many plumbers you have on the team? Just give us a sense.
Sure. We have 500 members of staff now, over 250 engineers, and with a turnover of 50 mil this year.
Fantastic, congratulations. I'm just trying to wonder what you were doing at 7. Were you shilling up the pipes? Were you?
No. I was answering the phones then, and used to call me Dad on a bleeper. You know, they used to have a lot of
answering the phones.
Yeah,
sounds like the Artful Dodger. That's amazing. What are you doing?
Yeah, that's how it was for us then.
That's amazing. So, and the Happiness Index, Matt, is sort of, you know, this is already going to intrigue people, isn't it? Because we think, well, can this be measured? What are we doing? Is it a big dashboard? Give us a sense of why you started it and what it is today.
Yeah, so I'm 36 years old. The first 18 years of my career, I worked with animals before I worked with humans.
With animals?
As in cows. I grew up on a farm. And then I went into the world of work, and I realised that animals are better at communicating than human beings. If anyone's a dog owner here, they'll be going, yep, totally get that. And what I mean is, although we've got this amazing thing called language, we're actually really bad at telling each other how we feel, especially if we think that bit of feedback we might give someone, like to a plumber, like maybe you should pull up your trousers when you go on a job. Sometimes that can be hurtful to people. So as I went through my career, we used to work, it was very similar to what Scott was saying at Pimlico. I started a marketing agency when we grew it from 2 people to 1,000 people in a 10-year period, but we based it on employee first. So that point earlier about Amazon on customer, We believed it was employee first and that would filter through to customer, but we realized we didn't have a way of tracking that. So we built a piece of technology called the Happiness Index that feeds back into the CEO, HR director and CFO how the people are feeling.
When you say the people, this is their own staff?
Their own staff, but also their customers if people want to go to that level. Most people start with the employee. But it's when people look at a spreadsheet and the financial results, all you're really seeing is the final output, aren't you, when you see the money?
Yeah.
But you don't see the invisible stuff like customer service, because all those things that Scott's talking about around how the fact that people turn up and they're professional, that all leads into loyalty and all those types of things. So it's a very simple dashboard that gives the people running a business an understanding of how the people are feeling.
And so everyone's now wondering, to what extent is the happiness of a company and its employees correlated with its financial success?
Well, that's the first thing around happiness is the first thing that we needed to do is link it to performance. So most people are taught by their parents that if you work hard at school, go to university, get a degree, get a job in legal or accountancy, then you'll be happy. But what our data shows, it's the other way around, which if you teach your children to be happy, in the same as you get your employees to be happy, they perform better. And it's a lot, and I was joking with Ollie beforehand, it's a lot for people to take in at first if you thought the other way around. Because someone came up to me the other day and said, yeah, but aren't happy people lazy? And I was like, what you mean is people that are stoned, not people that are happy. There's a big difference. But there's a real, if you're happy in your work and you love your work, the numbers show you perform better and the financials will come from that.
So actually getting a handle on how content, how happy your workforce is matters hugely. But how do you do it? How does it actually work for you in practice, Scott?
Well, I would totally agree with Matt. I think things have changed so much in times. I mean, you know, it's not so much about the pound note anymore. You know, I mean, I think years ago, people had the stereotype 20, 30 years ago, you're earning this type of money, etc. You know, staff don't worry so much about them. I think it's changed. I mean, you know, at Pimlico now, we have an in-house gym. You know, I mean, we have seems strange, we have a masseur who comes in 4 times. You seem interested in that, Ollie.
Sorry, my eyebrows shot up. Sorry,
this is a job interview now.
But that's 4 times a week. You know, we have a subsidised canteen. We do employee of the month, which they go to Langham's on a £200 voucher. We have a barbecue on the roof in the summer. And all these little bits and pieces, they make people feel valued. And
I'm gonna want more on this, but Ali, just on this measurement point, what's your sense of this? Because we heard yesterday about what someone was calling almost an internal net promoter score. How are the companies you're working with, other than with Matt's brilliant dashboard, how are they getting a handle on how their staff feel?
Yeah, I mean, it's often surveys and asking people to fill in responses about, you know, what's going well at work and what they're enjoying. But I think for me that the whole theory of motivation sits behind this. So what annoys people at work is stuff like red tape, irritating managers. Most people leave a manager, they don't leave a company. And I think we can actually do a lot to increase happiness by stopping doing things that make people unhappy. So part of the reason we do staff surveys is we find out what annoys people, what wastes their time, what causes them frustration. If we can stop doing that,
just getting it out
we
the
can
way.
get happiness.
One thing that's been playing on my mind, we want the best companies to be at our service 24/7. They're when we need them, particularly in your business, Scott. But we can't expect that of an individual because they need to rest. We don't want them to burn out. So how do we create an environment where our colleagues and team members are well rested and productive, but at the same time we don't let our customers and clients down? Matt, any clues, any tips?
So our data talks about a thing that people think is a marketing slogan, but we call it freedom to be human. So I used to think, so I'm a bit like Ali in terms of the way that I work. So like I dropped my kids off before I came here, and that's non-negotiable for me. But what we realised is that you find stuff that you think that works for you, but then you try and force it out on everyone else. So that works for me, but that might not work for other people.
Okay.
And examples of that, I found this brilliant thing where, so when I go on holiday, I turn my phone off and that's it. You can't get hold of me. And BMW do this thing where when you're on holiday, if you email that person, you get an email back that says, this email's been deleted. This is our policy. When someone's on holiday, it's deleted. If it's important, call them when they get back. And I thought that's brilliant. Oh, I'll put that in. But when I employ a lot of techies. A lot of people hated that. And what I realised, what works for Scott and what works Ali would be completely different. So it's like anything, like if you've got children or you've got friends, you've got to make it individual and allow different people to work in different ways. Some people are night people, some people are morning people.
So on this, and I've got so many things, and I know we will want to ask you, so briefly, Scott, how do you make sure the team feel good, but they're also in touch? You say go off, have a good night off, you're done?
Yeah, no, I think there's a few things you do. You get a few team bonding things going. You know, once a month we'll have bowling, we'll do this, we'll do that. Flexibility that Matt was on about is important. You know, you got to look at people's lifestyles now. Listen, I mean, you are running businesses, and listen, you can't allow people can't tell you exactly what they're doing in the same aspects. You know, if you're a mother, you want to drop the kids off and you're getting the job done, and they want to come in earlier, start later. That's fine. Listen, you know, people don't decide when taps are going to leak. So listen, we're 24/7. So for us, flexibility has become massive, and for me, that's the word: be flexible.
Right, Ali, anything to add on that, particularly because you've made some amazing choices in terms of how you work your own week?
Yeah.
What have you seen?
Well, I mean, we had a lady who worked with us for a while who'd been HR director at Sainsbury's before she joined us, and one of the things she did was change the staffing rota. So before they used to just assign people shifts, part-time people shifts, and then they let people choose their own shifts. And staff turnover decreased by a third just by letting people choose, which is, you know, what we're all saying. And you know, in a way you could say, well, I'm the founder, I'm the owner of the business, so I've got the privileged place of choosing when I work, which is true, but that is not very fair for me to do that and not extend the same opportunities. So there's some jobs in our business which you have to do a particular pattern, like finance. But how can you make things flexible? How can you make people really understand what they're signing up for before they join you?
Choosing your own shift. Scott, would that work round your way?
It can work. Yeah, it can certainly work. You know, I mean, it's not going to work, I think, as he said, in every department or every area, but for us, it certainly can work, and it does work.
So one thing Pimlico has done brilliantly is keep talent for a very long time. In some cases, record-breakingly long time. Top tip for how to hold on to brilliant people and not let them go, because actually, you could have a hugely successful life as an independent entrepreneurial plumber, and yet they stay with you. Why?
Value. Simply value them. Just make them know their worth. Little pat on the back, don't hurt, etc. Just value the individual.
Little massage.
I don't do the massages, but no. For me, the key is value them and make them part of your family. I mean, we're a family-run business. Make them feel part of that family. You know what I mean? You're all working together. You're all drinking out the same teapot. Just value them.
I love that phrase. I heard that phrase from Charlie a few years ago.
Yes, he said that.
I love it. Perks. Are they overrated, Ali?
It depends what you mean by a perk. I mean, I'm not a fan at all of cinema vouchers or, you know, things that, shopping vouchers and those kinds of things, which I think when you say the word perk, you can think of these companies that provide those kinds of things.
Yeah, okay.
But I think, you know, if you ask people if they want flexibility, if they want choices, if they want to, you know, have access to the training that they want, then absolutely it's.
So that's interesting. So how, anyone that we could learn from in terms of just offering these training opportunities to say, look, you have a budget, or, you know, in terms of lifelong learning, anything we should think about?
So I don't know that always works, because certainly working in HR, if you say to people, everybody, you've got £500 this year to go and do some training, at the end of the year, you realise nobody's done any training at all, because actually it comes back to individual people's career aspirations and where they want to go, and actually most people need to be coached into it and supported and sort of handheld on that journey, particularly when they're the younger end of the demographic.
Okay, well, how do you say, well, there's an award-winning business, Learnably, that's showing the opposite, actually, in terms of budgeting, showing people an array of things they can buy. Not everyone does nothing. Matt, where are you on this?
I would quote a children's book about a wise owl that gets wiser by using these. I've got really small ears, so I'm probably the worst person to do this, but is listening. Like, I think it goes back to what Ali was saying about what is a perk, and I think the number one thing that we see in our data is that people feel that if they're listened to and they have a voice, you still need to action on that. You can't just be listening and listening, not doing anything with it. But I think perks are not overrated if they're the right type of thing, and it goes back to the original point. They have to be personalised to what that individual wants. But the thing that's consistent is everyone wants someone to listen to, no matter how busy you are.
So you've built a brilliant team. what's the number one thing that's worked for you in terms of those small incentives that do make a massive difference?
I think I remember working when I was a student. I used to work in Asda, and sorry if I swear, but I remember someone, a customer, saying to their child, "Don't fucking swear," at their child. And what I've realised is people model you. So it goes back to Scott's point, which is if you want people to be loyal, you have to be loyal to them. So business is going to go through a tough time in the next 6 to 12 months. And if you show loyalty to people, I believe they show it back to you, and that's what I've seen from my team.
Interesting. So questions. What are your thoughts? What are your, on any bit of this talent puzzle? We'll go to the second row here, and then there'll be a special prize of as many fruit jellies as you can eat in the lunch break. Yes, here we go. Second row, just in the middle. Here we are. Thank you.
Hi guys, Joe here from RecBid. What kind of changes do you see and envision in the next 10 years in regards to work culture? You touched on, Scott, obviously previously, that financial incentives used to be obviously quite prominent. Now it's more about happiness, work culture and culture fit. So how do you see that actually progressing and changing, particularly as the younger generations get into the workforce?
Very good question. Are there any other questions lurking out there while we give the panel time to think about that? What else? Yes, we'll just go just to the back here, please. Thank you very much. We'll race across. You've got some predictions for us.
Do my best.
We can go, yeah. We'll come back in a year or 10. Here we go. Please, go away. Don't go away, throw far away. Go ahead.
I haven't even started yet. I just wondered whether you had any tips for engaging the unengaged, because you talked there about engaging your teams, etc., and I can see value, but just there were those, and we all have them, who aren't.
And
the bottom 20%.
Slightly undermotivated employees, that sort of...
Exactly that. And actually they're the ones who you either don't engage or you recognise are going to be a problem for you.
So 2 great questions. Where would you like to go? Ali?
Well, I think some of the stuff that's changing all the time, I think it's already been mentioned today, you know, technology might change, but actually that is a human systems and job design change. So actually how we skill people up. At the moment, we've got the lowest unemployment in the UK that we've seen since the 70s, and we can't just go out and buy the skills that we need into our business. And also because tech's changing so fast, nobody has the skills unless we train people. So I think, my sort of feel is that SMEs are not great at training people. We can do quite good on the job stuff, but actually significantly helping people to be forward thinking and actively change, I don't think we're good enough. So I think upskilling people, I think actively planning for culture change and that whole employee experience and what we want them to feel when they're at work. So the world's changing so rapidly, there actually can be quite a lot of distrust in lots of life. And if your employer is a person that you can trust, who deserves, you know, is loyal to you and you can be loyal back to it, it's actually quite a unique and privileged position being an employer and trying to create that environment where employees feel at home. So I think really developing how we do that. And I mean, there's loads more.
And this skills point is quite a big challenge for your industry, isn't it, Scott? In terms of the number of young people coming into the trade, how are you going to respond to that? Whose responsibility is it to train them up, to get them the skills they need?
I mean, it's a good question. I mean, there's a big skill shortage on tradespeople. There's no doubt, you know, there's not plumbers, electricians on the end of a rod you're reeling in. So any business, I feel, especially the business we're in, is missing the opportunity with apprenticeships, then they're missing the boat big time, because you get these youngsters, you give them a chance. I mean, you know, we've got 70 apprentices now, 20 of them are ladies, which is fantastic, and I'm going to be honest with you, they're actually better, if not, well, they're better than the men. They're that good, they're coming. I mean, I think it was 6 out of 10 when we done an awards for the apprentices, 6 of them were ladies who won it. Yep. They were that. But you've got to invest in apprentices, bring them through, they only know your way, you know, and then that, for us, that is going to be the way forward, because there is a shortage, there is a problem there. And again, you know, I go to a lot of schools, and you go to schools, and you go to these schools, Ollie, and it frustrates me because a lot of these schools, the teachers are talking to these kids, and they only know university. That's all they know. That's what they're getting told all the time. University, university. Conveyor belt. Now, I don't have a problem with university, but what I am saying is university you can get in debt, or you tend to get in debt.
Yeah.
There's no guarantee of a job, right? As an apprentice, you're getting paid while you're working.
You can learn while you earn.
Learn while you earn. You've got a guaranteed job for life and a very, very well-paid job.
Yeah. 100% agree. No issue with universities. I dropped out of 2. So, Matthew, what other big changes are you predicting, are you seeing?
Scott, what's your father's name? I missed that.
Charlie.
Charlie. I predict more Charlies. And what I mean by that is quite often, because you get people that are CEOs and MDs that have got children, and they moan about how people turn up for work and they want to work on stuff that's got purpose, and that they'll leave if it's not the way they want it to be, and they call them snowflakes. But then if you meet these same people at the weekend, they're telling their own children to go and challenge and question and ask. So I think that you have to be ready for a workforce, that you have to be to answer the questions why. Because they don't want to be like commanded around or do this, do that. The new generation of people have been taught to think, and even if they haven't, they can just go to YouTube and learn how to do all this stuff. So I think we've got better young people coming than we've ever had into the workforce, but we need to be able to adapt for the Charlies that are going to come in, because more people are going to make that decision where they go, screw this, I'm going to do it for myself. I don't want to be ordered around in this way.
Interesting. So, questions. I'm looking out. We've got about 5 minutes left. Yeah, please.
What about
We'll
that
come
question
to
over
you.
there?
Sorry?
We had a question over there.
Oh, was there one on the other side?
No, already asked. What do you do about the...
Oh, you're absolutely right about disengaged workforce. Gosh, I need to be replaced immediately. So what are we going to do about these under-engaged chairs? What about that question, Joe? Oh, Ali, forgive me, Ali.
So we did a really interesting exercise with a company a few years ago who did have a number of these sort of unengaged, either can'ts or won'ts, they can't do the job or they won't. And we actually took the whole business through an exercise of talking about 3 types of people. The star performers, who are the people who get a good outcome no matter what. The resistors on the other end, who are either the can'ts or the won'ts. And then the followers in the middle, a sort of steady state, do their job. And by presenting that concept to the entire business, it raised so many one-to-one conversations where people who were the disengaged started saying to their managers, "That's me, isn't it? I'm one of the ones that annoys you." And it led to a whole load of one-to-one conversations and actually actively either helping to change people's minds or getting them out of the business, because they weren't helping anybody and they weren't happy.
Good. Well, thank you, Ali, for drawing my attention back to this question. Scott, have you got a tip? And Matt as well.
Yep.
I would simply, my opinion is just keep valuing, give plenty of flexibility, listen to what people got to say, and unfortunately you get them, and when you do get a rotten apple, get them out. As simple as that. They will come in there, unfortunately, not everybody's bang on, but when you do get one, they can invest in other people. It's just work with the people who really want to be on board with you and value them.
Matt, what would you add?
Can you put your hand up if you've watched the Emoji movie? Has anyone watched that? Cool. 1. So just me and Jenny. It gets really bad scores, but I'd say it's one of the best films I've ever watched in my entire life. It's about an emoji called the meh emoji, which is that unengaged feeling. And if you watch I don't want to ruin it, but what happens is the meh emoji is fed up with being the meh emoji, because that's the only emoji it ever gets to be, but it wants to be these other things. So it's a combination of what Ali and Scott is saying, which is listen to people about why they're feeling like that and try and uncover that. And then if you can fix that, that's cool. But actually, sometimes people are in the wrong company, and some honest conversations need to be had. I genuinely say this to my team every week, which is, if you don't want to work here, please let me know, because this for me is I get to do the most amazing thing every week. And if you don't, I'll help you find that thing, because life's too short.
Right, so on that, and what a lovely thing to say on that, I'll help you find that other thing as well. Ali, if somebody in the room is thinking, I have to have a tough conversation because unfortunately someone has to leave my team in the near future, give us a piece of advice that we might not have known if we hadn't gone through that before. What have you learned?
Have some facts, prepare for the meeting, and never back someone into a corner. Always give them space for a way out. Cornered animals cornered cows, I don't know if you do that, react very badly. So always give someone a place to go, to change or to leave or some training.
Yeah. Scott, would you add anything? Because you've got so many,
Yeah, get someone else to do it.
No,
No, my idea, Ollie, would be is that, let's see that, not everybody works in a certain department. You might find a different department that they thrive in. It might not be for them, And
so is it out of the job or out of the organisation?
that's
an
right.
important
So
distinction.
sometimes it can be, the wrong person in the wrong job. They still might be superb, and then you give them an option elsewhere, and you found something great.
And they can thrive. Yeah.
That's it.
There was a question just in the middle here, please, and that'll be our final question before our break, please.
Okay. Hi, it's a kind of epidemic question. It's not about a virus, but it's about sort of mental health and well-being. And, it's connected to engagement and stress and so on. I'm just interested in your thoughts about what a company, what an organisation should be doing about that and what you were doing about it. Or in fact, actually, is it even a company's responsibility? Is this a personal responsibility? So just interested in your thoughts.
Yeah, so this is about the mental health of our workforce, to what extent we should take a responsibility and what we can do to improve it. I'm tempted to come to Matthew last. Ali.
I mean, yes, I think it is. Companies have to do something about it, because actually often companies are adding to the stress and the pressure that somebody's under.
Right.
And flexible working is part of it. Giving people opportunities to be heard and be listened to and to be supported and to be developed is part of it. And also giving people some space in their busy lives. So yeah, absolutely. Think companies need to take responsibility, and if you've got a difficult culture or an overbearing manager, these are all things that companies can do to make it easier for people.
So at the risk of generalising, Scott, we think of tradespeople just being, it's a no-nonsense business. You're there to do a really important job. That doesn't mean there's not room to think about mental health as well.
No, you're totally right. I mean, we've got a HR department, and they're very much on the end of the line. We've got support numbers. I mean, a lot of plumbers say to us that working on their own for 8 hours, 10 hours. It may seem silly, but we've got to start listening to people. I think people are becoming more open now. I think years ago, men and as much as ladies now would have hid away with the problem. I think now, which is fantastic, people are opening up, and businesses, as Ali says, need to be flexible, need to listen. They need to give them the support, give them the help they need. And again, just keep valuing and supporting people. Yeah,
absolutely. So, Matthew, some sort of final thoughts as we go in to lunch. I know it's something you've done a lot of looking at.
Yeah, it's an area we're working a lot, and I'll just lend some neuroscience in, and if anyone wants to know any more about that, just let us know. And I'll use an oversimplified model, but we've really got 3 parts of the brain through evolution. So we've got the reptilian part here, we've got the mammal part here, and we've got the human part here. And when people are stressed, what happens is they go back into their reptilian part of the brain. But the bit that differentiates humans from mammals, going back to my cow part from earlier, is the frontal cortex, which gives us creativity. And if we look at the future of work and we see more automation and robots coming into certain things, the bit that differentiates us as human beings. So to answer your question, if you're not doing that, you're not getting the best out of your people, and I would therefore argue you might not be the best manager for the future. So there's 2 answers. One, you should be doing it as a good human being, in my personal opinion. But if you're strictly looking at it as management as performance, then you should be doing it anyway. And I would see it as part of someone's job to understand that.
So many interesting thought starters there. Thank you very much. And we've reached the sort of time out mark for our break, I'm afraid. But would you agree this has been a great conversation between us? I hope you'll agree. So many good things, and Ali, you've really set the tone for that so well. So thank you very much to Ali, to Matthew, and of course to Scott. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, please.